Okay, so today topic is IFRS 16 lease. Okay, so before moving to the lease, we have to understand that what is non-current asset and identifying a lease section. Okay, first. So here is the definition and the section overview of lease: a contract of the right to use an asset within the scope of IFRS 16. If it meets the definition of lease contract, then we can say this is a lease. Okay, so under IFRS 16, should recognize a lease should recognize the right of use asset and a corresponding lease liability for all leases, and optional recognition exemption apply for short-term leases and leases for which the underlying asset is low value. When you see when we see the lease term is less than 1 year, and the asset value is very nominal or low, then we cannot recognize it as a lease. Okay, this will get exemption from lease. Okay, so how do we get the right to use an asset? So here we can see obtaining the right to use an asset. How do we obtain the right to use an asset? So here we can see there are many different ways of obtaining the right to use an asset, either for all or part of the asset life. For example, I can or you can buy a car outright or lease it for a agreed number of years. So or hire it for a short period of time. In each cases, we are able to drive the car, but our rights over the car differ. Yes, basically, if we buy the car and if we hire the car, so in the both cases we can drive the car, but the right over the car is differ in the two situation. So here is the definition of buy the asset and lease an asset. So now we read what is lease the asset. So if an entity lease an asset, it is paying another entity for right to use that asset for an agreed period of time. So this is the main and important topic, which is bold in black color. What is it? It means if an entity leases an asset, it is paying another entity. It is paying or it is giving another entity for right to use the asset. Okay, or for an agreed period of time, which means in agreed period of time, the lessee get the opportunity, or the lessee get the right to use the asset for a number of years, for a agreed number of years, or for the agreed time period. Okay, so it is the owner, it is lesser property, but the entity lease is getting the right to use it. Okay, and access to the benefit from using it for a agreed number of time, and access to get benefit, and access to benefit from using it. Okay, for using it the agreed period of time. So there is a definite explained broadly, so you just read it out after some time. So now we discuss the topic of what is lease contract. What is contract? Contract is the agreement between two parties for an for a specific purpose. So in the point of view of the lease contract, an agreement has to meet a definition of lease contract to be in the scope of IFRS 16. IFRS 16 has defined the lease contract or the lease definition. Then we call it is lease contract. So definition of lease contract or definition of contract of lease. So a contract or part of contract that convey the right to use an asset, which means the underlying the asset, for a period of time in exchange for consideration. I get the opportunity to use the asset for the from the lessor, so I have to pay some money. It is called consideration. Okay, so what is underlying asset? The asset which is given to the lessee, it is called underlying asset. Okay, so underlying asset means an asset that is the subject of the lease. This is the main subject of the lease. then it will be called underlying asset, for which the right to use the asset has been provided by the lessor to a lessee. So after discussing all of the topic, we just get the 2 or 3 main important lines or main important point of the lease. So here the lessee get the opportunity to the lessee get the right to use the asset, okay, for a period of time, and for access for consideration. So if I bold the lines that convey the right to use an asset for a period of time or agreed number of years in exchange for consideration, okay, without consideration or without any paying money, so the lessor does not get anything. So this is the basic concept. What is lessor and what is lessee? Lessor is the owner or supplier of the asset, and the lessee is the entity who get the right to use the asset. And now come to the point, what is right of use asset? Right of use asset. Right, what is mean rights? Rights mean I have right to use the asset for economic benefit or for any purpose. Okay. An asset that represents a lessee's right to use an underlying asset for a lease term, which is called right of use the asset. Now, identifying a lease. If we want to identify a lease, we have to understand the given scenario very properly. Otherwise, we cannot identify a lease. Here we can see under IFRS 16, a contract is deemed to contain a lease. A contract is deemed to contain a lease. Is not every contract is lease, but if go to the lease, it have to have some points. Okay, so here we can see under IFRS 16, a contract is deemed to contain a lease if it conveys the right to control the use of identified asset for a period of time in return for consideration. Usually consideration may be cash, although this purposely does not restrict the definition. The right to control. The right to control the use of the underlying asset depends on the lessee having both the right to obtain substantially all of the economic benefits from using the asset. I said earlier, economic benefits. So, the right to obtain substantially all the economic benefit from using the asset. The lessee get the economic benefit from the asset. The right to direct the use of the identified asset, and he has the right to direct the use, okay, of the identified asset. So what is identified asset? The asset must be specified in the lease. If the asset is not specified in the lease contract, this contract never be a lease contract. Okay, so the asset must be specified in the lease. It can be car, it can be machinery, it can be land, it can be anything. So it just is specified, must be specified in the lease. It may be part of an asset, such as part of an office facility. Okay, if the lessor has the practical ability to substitute the asset for an equivalent during the lease and would economic benefit from the doing so, then it cannot be a lease. They have the substantive substitute right. There is no identified asset and the contract is not a lease. What does it mean? Suppose the lessor give an asset to the lessee to use the asset, and after some time the lessor bring back or substitute the asset, and for substitution all the economic benefits goes to the lessor, then it cannot be a lease. Okay, period of time should be mentioned very properly. A period of time such as a year, or the amount of use based on the production of the asset, such as number of units produced. Right to obtain substantial all of the economic benefits. Yes, the lessee has the right to obtain substantially all of the economic benefits from the asset, otherwise it cannot be a lease. This can be achieved through holding, using or subleasing the asset. So the lessee can give the asset to the another entity as a sublease. It is asset only within the parameter of the contract. Example, a lease contract for a car may restrict its use to within one country, in which case only economic benefits within that country are considered. What does it mean? It means it is asset only within the parameter of the contract. So in the contract it is given that a car may restrict its use to within one country. It means a car have to use within one country, okay, in which case only economic benefit from the country are considered, otherwise not, because the lessee get the opportunity, or the lessee get the right to use the asset for one country. So from the one country all the economic benefits are considered, okay. And the last topic is right to direct the use of the asset, which is control. The lessee can direct how and for what purpose the asset is used. Okay, the lessee can direct how and for what purpose the asset is used throughout the period of time or use. The assessment is unaffected by protecting rights within the terms of the contract that are designed to protect the asset. Example, prohibiting a truck from being used to carry explosive. Yes, if the lessee get the right to use an truck, but if he carry the explosive items on the lorry or on the trucks, then it cannot be a lease. Okay, so the assessment is unaffected. The assessment will be unaffected by protective rights within the terms of the contract that are designed to protect the asset. Example, prohibiting a truck from being used to carry explosive. So this is all for lease contract, not for today. Thank you for watching. Stay with us.